Welcome into the Bonesville Pregame Podcast. Al Myatt joined by Kevin Monroe. Kevin, of course, great defensive back in his playing days at East Carolina. And Kevin, it came down to a play from the right corner. I can remember when you used to line up there for the Pirates. And Isaiah Brown Murray made a touchdown saving stop as Tulsa had it 4th and goal at the ECU 2. And IBM made the stop at the 1-yard line. Pirates win 38-31 and become bowl eligible.
Yeah, it was tough that came down to the last play. I'm glad IBM was able to make it. And he actually had gotten a long pass caught over his head just a play or two before that to get them down in that situation. I remember thinking the only way they can get beat at this point was to have a deep ball. And they've just struggled with Joseph Williams all game long, his ability to go up and catch that high pass, that high ball, a 50-50 ball. He came down with all of them. It seemed like with 3 touchdowns and kept them in the football game. But that's a huge play by IBM there to save the game. And this is a Pirate team now that thinks they can win. They expect to win, and that's a good trait to have as you go into a tough game like this at North Texas.
North Texas on Saturday, I believe it's a 3:30 p.m. kickoff, and Pirates definitely have some momentum, Kevin, coming out of that Tulsa game. And last year, Tulsa and Greenville, not nearly as happy an occasion. That was the final game, I believe, in a 2-10 season. And it looked like East Carolina was going to manage to beat the Golden Hurricane. But a Wildcat snap, and somehow or another, Rajay Harris didn't get the handle on it. Tulsa ended up recovering and driving and winning that game in Greenville last year. But Rajay really was a difference maker at Tulsa this year. He had scoring runs, I think 23 and 24 yards in the fourth quarter, went over 100 yards for the game. And that was after he really wasn't as productive in the first half, but he finished very strong and helped carry the Pirates through to win number 6.
That's exactly right. And I remember hearing the announcer say, where has this been? Because he didn't do hardly anything in the first half. Didn't really get very many opportunities. London Montgomery and Marlon Gunn were getting the carries, I believe. And that second half, he really stepped it up. And we didn't even talk about the 71-yarder. They got called back, I think, for holding or illegal hands to the face or something it was about on the offensive line. And so, yeah, he was looking really good, looking fast, making good moves in the hole, running with power. And you mentioned that, the game a year ago, there's a lot of weird things that happened at the end of that game. The Pirate fans would probably say that they got robbed with some calls, but definitely redemption story for Rajay this time around because he, when the fourth quarter came, he basically said, give me the ball and get out of my way. And it was making play after play. So just really impressed with the way he just kind of put the Pirates on his shoulders, especially because, there had been some turnovers, wasn't maybe the best game for Caden Hauser. And so to be able to run the football and keep it simple in the fourth quarter to kind of salt that clock away was huge for the Pirates.
And, the running game kind of took up some slack. Caden Hauser had some good numbers at Tulsa, but some turnovers, and uncharacteristic of his performance in the previous 2 games when he'd had 5 touchdowns in each game to help the Pirates to wins over Temple and Florida Atlantic.
Yeah, kind of some ill-advised throws, just almost strange. I mean, there was that one sequence where he threw back-to-back interceptions. Basically, the first one was called incomplete because it bounced off the ground. But then the very next play, he throws a pick 6. And I know there was probably some miscommunication with the wide receiver there. He kind of was running a fade route, and Caden was throwing a stop route. But that just can't happen. I mean, you can't just take the snap and not look where you're throwing and just throw it. I know it's a timing situation. You got to get it out quick. But if you look over there and you don't see that receiver, you got to throw that ball 10 feet over his head and just throw it out of bounds. And so for the first time, Caden looked confused and a little bit unsure of himself, which was a little bit concerning. And I would say that some of the things that plagued Jake Garcia and some of the things that plagued the Pirates through the first half of the season kind of showed its ugly head in this game, for the Pirates. And so that was a little bit concerning. I was glad to see the defense step up and kind of bail them out, and in the run game kind of bail them out. But yeah, Caton, he had the numbers overall, but in terms of turnovers and being that sure, confident passer that had thrown for, I think, 11 touchdowns in the 2 previous games, we didn't see that Caton Hauser last week. So we needed him to bounce back.
And the challenge, of course, is going to North Texas and the Mean Green coming off a loss at Texas San Antonio. And I think they were down significantly at halftime, made a comeback, but the Roadrunners ended up winning that. Earlier in the season, first conference game for the Pirates, they had defeated Texas San Antonio 30-20 in Greenville. And so that common opponent indicates that East Carolina might have the upper hand at Denton, Texas, outside of Dallas, where the game Saturday will be played. But hard to say. I think the results vary against some other common opponents. And East Carolina, of course, has made a lot of progress since October 20th when Blake Harrell became interim coach, just in terms of regaining, I think, some Pirate swagger.
Yeah, I mean, this Pirate team, they look like they are expecting to win. As I mentioned before, they're excited. They're staying in games or they're pulling away from teams. You mentioned the common opponents. You know, both teams played Tulsa and Florida Atlantic. Both teams beat them. Both teams played Army and UTSA. North Texas certainly performed much better against Army than the Pirates did. North Texas performed much better against Army than the Pirates did, losing that game 14-3. On one hand, they were only able to score 3 points against Army. And, you know, Army kind of plays keep away with the football when you play them because they're going to run their football and run the clock. But they're averaging, North Texas is averaging almost 36 points a game. So to only score 3 in that game was a big letdown for them. But then conversely, they were able to hold Army to 14 points. And Army is scoring, you know, in the 30s every game as well. And, you know, with Daly at quarterback, he's been playing really well. So they lost that game, but that was a game where they showed up. I'm not sure what happened in this UTSA game. It kind of got away from them, losing by 3 touchdowns. It's not the same UTSA team that the Pirates saw because, you know, even though that game was close, I don't think the UTSA team was as good enough to beat this North Texas team by 3 touchdowns. So they've struggled some, lost 4 games in a row. As we know with the Pirates, you know, it becomes a confidence thing. And so the fact that they haven't been able to put it together, you wonder, you know, you get to be to 5 wins through the first 6 games. You're figuring, oh, bowl game's going to be nothing. And now they have to win 1 out of these last 2 just to become bowl eligible. And so I'm sure they're getting antsy, getting a little bit nervous. And they probably mark this game on their schedule as the one to be that 6th win and are looking up at the Pirates thinking, you know, oh no, they've won 3 straight. You know, what are we going to do here? So should be a good ball game. Both teams with a lot to play for.
Kevin, you look at the situation with Mike Houston, and he was dismissed after that Army game at West Point. But this is becoming an increasingly common phenomenon in the American Athletic Conference. Tom Herman, he's out at Florida Atlantic. Stan Drayton, he's gone at Temple. And then I think I saw today T-shirt Biff at Charlotte. He's out. And so I know that affects you personally because I think the 49ers were showing some recruiting interest in Marcus McNeil, junior receiver there at North Raleigh Christian, and your older son.
That's right. Marcus has been, you know, did a game day visit at UNC Charlotte, loves the staff, loves the team, was excited about them and to seeing where that led. But yeah, once the staff gets fired, just like at East Carolina, and you kind of start over. And you don't know what they're going to do. Right now they have an interim coach as well. So who knows who gets that job. But it definitely makes a difference. And, you know, you just wonder with Poggi and his antics, you know, just he was so crass and the things that he would say in the media and the way he would treat other coaches. You knew at some point that was going to wear thin with the administration and with the fan base. And if you're not winning, you certainly can't just kind of do what you want and say what you want and wear what you want. I joke with my wife. She was like, well, didn't they know this about him before he got there? I was like, well, I doubt he wore a cutoff T-shirt to the interview. So they probably didn't know that. But, it's been a little bit of a wild ride there at Charlotte, and they finally decided to go in a different direction.
Well, Marcus Monroe, of course, remains an outstanding talent, and he will continue the recruitment process, and we'll be interested in how that process proceeds. But Marcus Monroe, possibility for the East Carolina program as well. And East Carolina going to North Texas, I'm not sure, Kevin, have we played North Texas before?
That's actually a good question. I'm not sure. I didn't look at that in my research. Obviously, this is the one of the first times that we've been in the same conference together, them being kind of on the western side of it, and East Carolina on the eastern side. So not sure about that history. I know it's an exciting opponent to be in that kind of Dallas area. The Pirates have played, kind of SMU that's in that area, and Rice that's in that area. So definitely played some teams in both. Yeah, exactly. Both in Conference USA and the American Conference from that area. So excited to get back there and see how they perform.
Chandler Morris, former TCU quarterback, and he's the signal caller for the Mean Green. Got some great passing numbers, and size him up.
Yeah, I mean this kid is exciting. As you mentioned, comes over from TCU, and the first thing I look at when I look at quarterbacks is what's your completion percentage. Coach Logan always said, I need my quarterback to complete more than 60% of his passes. And so that's kind of the bare minimum to know whether you're doing your job. He's at almost 65%, just a little over 63.5. So he's a pretty accurate passer, 3,300 yards passing on the year so far, 332 a game with 27 touchdowns. He's spreading the football around. He does have 12 interceptions, but 27 to 12 is 2-to-1. More than 2-to-1, and so you'll take that stat as much as he's throwing the football. He's got several good receivers that he's throwing the ball to. DT Sheffield is the main guy who has 58 catches on the year and 10 touchdowns. But there's a lot of guys with there's I think 5 guys with 2 touchdowns or more, and so people are getting opportunities. They're putting up a lot of passing yards. I think 355 passing yards on this every game versus 155. On the ground, and so they're a pass-first team, and it starts and ends with Chandler Morris. So he's a player they're going to have to play very well against, and that's the guy that Coach Harrell sat down to game plan against when he started looking at this film.
Kevin, I wonder, as far as longevity of coaches, the era that we're in now with the transfer portal and nil, the lure of the nil, are coaches. Are fan bases and athletic administrators less patient with allowing coaches to work their way out of a losing streak, do you think?
I think it's a situation where how is the team performing in terms of, are the games close that they're losing? Are they in every game? But also it's what's the locker room like? What's the culture like? Do they surround this coach? Do they still love him? Are they still fighting for him? Do they still believe in what he's teaching? And if they're in every game and they still believe in the coach, I think you let him go and see if he can figure it out. And you maybe give him the offseason to see what he can do in the transfer portal. But if in a scenario where they're getting blown out, doesn't look like there's very much discipline, and you kind of hear things either in the media or in the locker room where it doesn't sound like the coaches still have the team, that maybe they've lost the team, that's when you have to move on. Because we're in a win now scenario. It's very easy to get a whole new crop of players in the offseason to kind of turn things around where you're missing places. If you need an offensive lineman, you can go get them. You need receivers, you can go get them. You need a new quarterback, you can go get a couple of them. And so it's usually not the players per se. So you have to get that right staff that can go do that recruiting, get those guys in and coach them up. And so if you're not doing that right away, ADs are less and less likely to let you stay in that role.
I think talk a little bit, if you would, Kevin, about maybe that mindset and how it's changed at East Carolina over the last 3 games.
So, I'm a big Mike Houston fan. I thought he was a great man, and I love what he did at the stops previous to East Carolina. And then, those first few years at East Carolina, he had a good run, but it seemed more and more like he wasn't comfortable with this new style of college football with the transfer portal and NIL. Now, give him credit for going out last year and bringing in 2 new quarterbacks, going out and refilling the receiver room, bringing in some new guys to add to Chase Sowell. So there was definitely some places that we filled in that transfer portal and made a difference. But his kind of military style, intense football coach, it works some places, and it seemed like it was working early on at East Carolina. But right now, it doesn't seem like the players were gravitating to that style of coaching as much as they are now. Blake Harrell is a different guy. He is more of a player's coach. He laughs and jokes with him. He wants things to be loose at practice, loose at the games. He's doing big boy punt returns and big boy one-on-ones, the offensive defensive lineman running pass routes at practice. He's trying to install this a bit of levity to the program so guys don't take themselves so serious. Now, you got to get out there and do your job. You got to be ready to play. But he wanted to lighten things up a little bit. He's made practice time shorter. He's done so much to just kind of adhere to what the players need. Now, that being said, they played 3 opponents that aren't the best opponents they've probably played all year. In this last game, they could have very easily lost that game with the way they made mistakes and things like that. So it's not all fun and games. It's not going to be easy. They're not going to just roll out there and win every game just by having a good time. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's just been a different personality of this team over the last few weeks, and so far it's working for them.
Kevin, we see the enigma of Andrew Conrad continuing, and at the end of the first half, they got him in position to take an attempt. I think it was over 50 yards. He hit it, and that gave him some momentum, I think, going into halftime. But then fourth quarter, off the right, upright, and no good, and that created an 8-point deficit. To Rajay Harris's credit, he got in for a 2-point conversion and kind of restored the normal pattern of scoring for the Pirates. But, East Carolina seems to be kind of cursed with the inability to convert extra points.
It's just the strangest thing, as you mentioned, to be able to hit a 50-yarder but then miss extra points. Now, certainly, kicking is just a weird thing, and it goes in cycles. And even in the NFL this year, I'm seeing Justin Tucker missed a couple of field goals on Sunday. Aubrey from the Cowboys, who never missed a short one. So you're seeing that happen a lot, and it's a mental game for these kickers. Just depending on what hash it's on and what the distance is, the kicks that they make all the time, they can end up missing. But Conrad has certainly had an issue with shorter kicks, and I think it's just a lack of focus. Because you have to focus so hard to make that 52-yarder because you have the right height to it. It's got to be the right distance. You got to put the right amount of power into it. Your plant foot's got to be perfect to make a 55-yarder, 53-yarder, whatever. But with an extra point, it's just, you kind of go through the motions. It's like that short pass that a receiver goes to catch and turns his head away at the last minute and it bounces off his hands because he's just so sure he's going to catch it. I feel like that's what Conrad goes through. It's a focus thing, and I don't know what he's got to do to correct that, but you can't miss those easy ones. Can't miss those short ones. I'd almost prefer, when Perez came in, he was making everything short. He didn't have the leg of Conrad, but he was making everything short. And I'd rather have that and not have the ability to make a 50-yarder as long as I'm knocking down all the close ones, all the routine kicks. So, we know Andrew can do it. He's just got to tighten up that focus and be better there because you can't allow the kicking game to cause you to lose football games.
I think Blake Harrell said that the players kind of picked Conrad up and said, we got you. We got you on the missed extra point. And maybe that's the difference in kind of the team's personality at this point, that he's not just relegated to go over there and sit in the corner, so to speak. But Pirates did manage to overcome that bit of misfortune and defeat Tulsa 38-31. Going to North Texas with the assurance of bowl eligibility. And let's talk about that Bonesville tradition, Kevin. Kevin's keys to the game.
Yeah, we're going to start with turnovers. That ugly bug of interceptions kind of reared its head in this last game, and that's just something that you can't do to win football games. And so Caden Hauser, who'd been so good at protecting the football and being accurate, making his throws, just had a rough outing. Just seemed like some of his throws just didn't make sense. And he seemed a little bit confused. You have to be able to take care of that football. Keep it simple. Start with the run. Open up with the play action pass. and then you can take some shots, get back to what they were doing that got them there. This is a North Texas team that's given up almost 36 points a game. That's giving up quite a few yards on the ground and 5 yards a carry and quite a few yards through the air. So there's some opportunities there for Caden Hauser in this club, but you have to take care of the football. So it's going to start with taking care of the football and not turning it over. We talked a little about the kicking game. You got to find more consistency there. This game, as you said, it's a 2-point game in terms of the spread. It could come down to a late kick, whether that's an extra point or a field goal. So Conrad and crew has got to be solid, making those kicks late in games. And then protection. You got to protect the quarterback. This is a North Texas team that has 18 sacks on the year, almost 2 a game. They've got 2 guys with over 4 sacks on the year so far. And so got to protect Caden Hauser. Now, the good thing about the John David Baker's offense is the ball comes out fairly quickly, and Pirate quarterbacks don't get sacked a whole lot. But that's got to be especially perfect in this game. You got to protect them, give some room, give some time to throw the football, and let those receivers, Wright and Smith, and so well get out there and do what they do, because they've been playing great the second half of the season.
All right, at Tulsa on Saturday, and then the Pirates come home to finish the regular season against Navy, and we'll be talking about defending that triple option, I guess, next week. And you'll be describing that action on the Pirate Radio Network. But Kevin, great to visit with you as always, and look forward to talking with you next week on the Bonesville Pregame Podcast.
Appreciate it, Al.